Today, I want to talk about the potential of Helluva Boss shorts and perhaps even a spin-off. Recently, Helluva Boss has introduced the concepts of shorts, which should give us insight into subplots we don't get to see enough in the show. With that in mind, I want to discuss what some of these shorts would likely explore, where I hope they will go, how they may pave the way to general Helluverse shorts outside of Helluva Boss, and potentially spin-off shows in the same world. My name is Deepcut, demons call me ImpCut. Suggest a funny joke I can use when I tell people to subscribe in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe. Now, we technically only have one short right now, but I would argue that there are theoretically two shorts that exist. The first official short was the recent Girls' Day Out adventure with Millie and her sister Sally Mae. This came with a slew of merchandise, very similar to the approach taken with the special music video that came out before, featuring Stolas with a new song, Look My Way. This was a beautifully animated little cinematic short that gave us more insight into the mind of Stolas before diving into the actual episode of Full Moon, and in my opinion, this was the very first test for the shorts. Before this, I had seen polls from VivziePop asking if people would enjoy more merch drops outside of the seasonal ones they do throughout the year, with the shorts seeming to be a way to have easier merch tie-ins. Previously, episodes were releasing in such a way that it seemed to be hard to get merchandise to line up perfectly with the releases, and by the time merch referencing an episode comes out, fans who appreciate that scene have often moved on. These days, the merch seems to line up better with the episode releases, but I imagine the shorts were designed as isolated one-shot stories that could be more easily timed with merch drops without affecting the release of actual episodes. After the music video test with Stolas, the crew seemed to lean into the potential merch sales with shorts, and first developed that Girls' Day Out adventure with Millie and Sally Mae. Now, unfortunately for the fans who want this sort of thing to explore more niche characters, I think the future shorts have to be built around characters that the team now considers marketable, largely based on previous merch sales. Now, I could be wrong, but based on polls I've seen and done, the cherubs and dorks and characters like that aren't nearly as popular as certain demon characters, and of course, elite and royal characters tend to be the fan favorites. Due to her massive popularity after her short appearance in Season 1, Episode 5, I had previously already predicted that Sally Mae was so marketable that she would get a dedicated episode, specifically with a Girls' Day Out theme. So when that ended up coming in the form of a short instead of an actual episode, it wasn't that surprising to me. With that in mind, here's what I imagine are some potential shorts we will see from Helluva Boss, and how those could even lead into a full series. Now, the first one I want to talk about is the potential between Martha and Mrs. Mayberry. For those who don't know, Martha is my wife. I even bought her pin, but I don't think she was particularly marketable as a character. She wasn't even a demon, and she wasn't iconic the way that other side characters who were introduced in Season 1 were, and she seemed introduced essentially as a gag character to fill out Episode 1's plot. I love her to death because, you know, she has such a great personality, but until recently, she wasn't someone I would have expected to get a dedicated short. However, after her reappearance as a demon in the most recent episode where she came back even hotter, fans have made it clear that she is someone they'd like to see more of. And most of that is because of Mrs. Mayberry appearing in the background of her home. The two characters are clearly sleeping together, which was apparently something fans really wanted, which led to it being put into the show. If there wasn't plans for a Martha and Mayberry short before, this scene to test the waters probably made them greenlight one. We don't know what happened to Martha's husband or her kids, so it would be really interesting to explore how these two women came together, assuming they weren't already in love on Earth. And maybe she'll even mention some creepy imp hitting on her who wouldn't stop talking about how it's not too late to ask Jesus for forgiveness. Now, in addition to this potential short, this framework can work for just about any pairing in the show. It's no secret that a lot of Helluva Boss fans are LGBT, or even just LGBT adjacent, if you will. People who have always had an active part in shared spaces where those cultures tend to dominate, such as animation, and who tend to factor in these types of relationships into complex dynamics that they like to see explored. There are endless weird ships that could be explored that I think would be really interesting just as a sort of experiment in marketing. We're currently living in an age where a lot of studios are just giving the audience directly what they want, trying to have as wide an appeal as possible, but they have crossed the line with the multiverse trend. The dissolving of the barriers between fictional worlds has led to some very endless meta-commentary, and people are largely over it, but Helluva Boss can offer a sort of middle ground. With the actual show itself, it gets to continue exploring a world that people already love because of how it reflects the creative vision of VivziePop and Brandon Rogers. That show gets to maintain the story it was already building, but the shorts allow for them to create bonus stories that don't actually have to hurt what happens in the series proper, while still giving the audience exactly what they want. They can just say yes to whatever weird fandom dynamic the audience wants to see explored, allowing the background of the world to reflect the audience, with the main stage pieces continuing to represent the visions of the creators. It's a fun balance that gets the best of both worlds, and just about any ship dynamic could be thrown into one of these shorts. And with that in mind, I have to believe that somewhere out there is another short in development that would focus on Fizzarolli and Osmodius. These shorts can still have our main characters in it. It doesn't just have to be wild side characters, so maybe it would be about Blitz meeting Osmodius sometime while interacting with Fizz, something to perhaps bridge the gap between the episode where Blitz and Fizz made up and the episode where Blitz became Fizz's bodyguard. It would be nice to just get a little bit more of their dynamic explored, but it may not really matter for the overarching plot for the rest of Season 2, and thus a short would be the best place to explore it. Mammon's mid-season special wasn't exactly a finale for Fizz's story, with Mammon promising more revenge down the road, but a short would give the crew an opportunity to just show more of Fizz's life instead of more of his drama. His episodes have all been so epic, and it would be nice just to see a day in the life in the lustring, which leads to the next possibility of what these shorts can focus on. One thing we might not have much need for in the actual show is exploring the rings of envy, or even exploring some of the rings we've already visited more extensively. Envy is believed to be an ocean where characters like Blitz may have no real reason to go, or may not even be able to survive. But an episode maybe focused on Glitz and Glam, who are at least part possessor, could give us an inside look of the Envy Ring while promoting merch of those characters. The story of Helluva Boss can visit all 7 rings, but the real story is in Pride, Wrath, Greed, and Lust, so shorts focusing on side characters who live in or visit some of the more obscure rings could be really fun. Barbie Wire is another fan favorite character who I think would sell well with merch, and I could imagine her having a short that is sort of an inversion of the Helluva Boss pilot. Barbie Wire could have her own business similar to Blitz's, where she goes up to Earth for drug trades, and it would be funny to introduce some crew members she could work with and riff off of, the way Blitz does with Moxie and Millie. This could be a more dramatic short even, getting more into her character that Helluva Boss may not have room to explore. She would be at the opposite end of hell, living in the Sloth Ring, as far away from Blitz as can be, while also having funny missions to Earth similar to him. Now, another character I have to imagine is going to have a dedicated short is Luna herself, and if not some sort of solo story, it could include Octavia. I could see Luna taking Octavia to her first real party in the Gluttony Ring, perhaps helping her sneak out while she's staying with Stolas or even with Stella. Like with any good party story, it would lead to Octavia just ending up feeling more depressed than happy, and maybe Luna would end up cheering her up again like in Seeing Stars. However, it would be pretty great for this short to also involve hanging out with Vortex again, and perhaps Luna will end up disappointing Octavia more than anything, setting Octavia up for whatever isolation she feels in the series proper as we approach the climax of her story. In addition to Helluva Boss shorts, I would also love, as I mentioned in a previous video, for them to eventually just explore Helluverse shorts. In particular, I would like them to explore certain characters from Hazbin Hotel who probably aren't being properly explored in the show because of how much it has to focus on its main story. Even just one short about any side character would be pretty epic, and I feel like Amazon Prime would allow VivziePop to make at least some shorts to advertise the new season before it airs sometime next year. We already have some prequel comics that feature Alistair and Angel, and I think it would be absolutely amazing to get a dedicated Alistair short based off of his comic appearance, or something similar, just giving us a day in the life of this or any other character there. This right before season 2 gets released would be insanely epic, I think, and bring in a lot of new fans to the show. Now, there are always more characters the shows can explore, don't get me wrong, but one thing I also want to talk about is the possibility of entirely new stories and characters being explored in the shorts, which in turn could lead to entire spin-off series. That format could essentially allow for backdoor pilots, self-contained stories that are designed to go off into entire narratives that can explore entirely different facets of Hell and the world of VivziePop as a whole. One thing I would love to see more of is Zoophobia, which started as a webcomic VivziePop was producing, where the Hazbin Hotel characters were originally planned to appear. She did make a Zoophobia short that seemed to work as a backdoor pilot for a whole series, but it didn't take off quite as well as the Helluverse content. I'd love to see more Zoophobia myself, and feel like a lot of the story could be recontextualized to fit within the world of Hazbin Hotel, instead of Hazbin Hotel fitting in the world of Zoophobia. One thing I theorized about with the introduction of the more furry animal-based species in the Gluttony Ring is the idea of there being some sort of furry safe haven in the Gluttony Ring, similar to what's explored in the Zoophobia comic. This was a place that had 12 districts, if I recall correctly, in addition to its capital city where most of the story took place. Like Helluva Boss, a full Zoophobia spin-off could focus on exploring these different areas and the different issues they have in relation to the more secure capital. The Helluverse shorts would be one way to explore this world again, but in a way that connects it to the Helluverse to keep those more edgy fans invested. Beyond that, any new character can be introduced with entirely new plots existing in any ring of hell, or even somewhere up in heaven. But what would you like to see? Leave short and spin-off ideas in the comments down below, and if you want more Helluverse or VivziePop content in general, check out this playlist I put together explaining Zoophobia and its different origins and how it relates to Helluva Boss. See you guys next time.